Welcome back to the Milwaukee Market Update. We're bringing you news and data to help you make your real estate decisions. Today's episode is a little bit different. Ty and I are not really bringing much news or data to this episode. Instead, we're talking only about how can you buy a home. Maybe you've thought about buying a home. Maybe you have friends that have bought a home. You know it's something that's important to you. This episode is all just what can you start doing today to understand what can I do, and then what does this whole process look like?
What's the 10,000 foot overview of how you get to your goals, and how do you know that this should even be your goal in the first place? Budgets, how to, milestones.
We're here to give you the information you need regarding your decisions for real estate. Should I buy a home now? Should I be selling? Is the housing market about to crash? And are these headlines I'm reading, content I'm seeing on social media even true or relevant to me? If you're new to this show or returning because you've listened to our other episodes, it'd mean the world to us to please take a second and subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram at Horizon Homes MKE or reach out on our website, homewithhorizon.com. I'm Nick.
I'm Ty.
With Compass, your local Milwaukee real estate experts. All right, well, a little bit different of an episode we're doing here today, Ty. This one is all about how to buy a house. So I think
not just a house, but a home.
A home. Difference.
I guess, or duplex or investment property. I guess a lot of these steps are mostly the same.
Yeah, so a home, a condo, more or less similar. But this episode here is for someone that's maybe thinking about buying a house. It's something that's on their radar. Maybe they own a home already. Maybe they're looking to buy their first time home. But this is what this episode's all about. We're gonna break it down and make it really easy for what can you do today if buying a home in the next 3, 6, 12 months in the future, what can you do to be prepared? Because I think it's overwhelming.
For sure.
It can be overwhelming, especially if you've never gone through the process before of where do I even start? There's so much information out there, and we're here to make it simple and break this down for you.
Yeah, and I think the information we cover, you might just assume right off the bat, well, if I bought a home already, I already live in one, I bought it 10 years ago, I know what I'm doing. I'm good to go. Not necessarily, things do change, especially the strategies that we use. So hopefully this is a good refresher for those who have done it before, but also a good how-to guide for those that are new to the process.
Love it.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to kick us off here at the highest level. I always like to call it the 10,000 foot overview, kind of looking down at the map. How do I get from A to Z essentially of, owning a new home? And the 3 key phases that we like to go through are education or prep, searching or shopping, and then our under contract phase. So just to get those all out on the page so everybody knows kind of what those are, and we'll just go a little bit deeper into kind of what each one of those are. This is not going to be a comprehensive guide, more of like a refresher of like what's the order of events and like what are some of the key milestones that you're going to hit.
And I think we'll talk mostly today about that education and prep phase, get into that shopping phase of it, and then the under contract, we'll dabble in that a little bit, but I think that's not what this episode's about. This is really more for you want to make this a reality for you. What can you start doing today before you're even writing offers?
We could do a whole series just on the under contract.
We could do a 10-hour podcast on that if we really wanted to, which I don't think anyone would listen to.
No chance.
So
every single one of them is different. So.
Yeah. So let's start off in what you call the education phase, the prep phase. Tell me more kind of what are the major milestones because when I think about the prep phase, I think a lot of people are either shopping, like they're looking on Zillow, they maybe know how much they want to spend, maybe don't. They know that they should buy a house. They're kind of in
maybe
this,
don't.
Yeah, maybe they shouldn't buy a house. They're like, I'm renting right now. So like, what are kind of these steps that someone should do in this education or prep phase here?
I usually like to define this as the step that most people skip, unfortunately. It's kind of like the analogy I use is like buying a car. You're like, crap, I need a car. I'm going to go to the dealership today. I'm going to look around. I'm going to drive around a couple and I'm going to buy it. Like limited research. And honestly, half the time I feel like people do more research buying their home or buying their car than they actually do their home. So education for me kind of includes 3 to 4 steps. They can happen in different orders, but a lot of times the order that it does happen is your first 1 to 2 showings, in my opinion, with a real estate agent. So open houses are kind of like window shopping, but actually getting that educational approach of it, how a showing works, the visual inspection, what are the results after the showing. Those first 1 to 2, like the goal is not to have you be like, okay, perfect, let's buy that car, buy that house. It's how does this process work, what are the results, and get any questions answered. usually that'll lead into something like a home buying kickoff that's going to give you kind of like the information we're covering today, like what is the roadmap, what are the common pitfalls or the most common things and challenges that we're going to come into in the process. Then followed by, you've seen a home, you have an overview of the process, a practice offer or a sample offer on one of those first 1 to 2 homes, so you can review 30 to 40 pages worth of legal paperwork in a non-pressure, non-fast-moving situation, so you can have that confidence in the future. And we'll talk about some of the different components that you should definitely be dialing in before you're really going on showing 3 and beyond as well. But those are some of the key education steps that I see, at least in what we drive. I know you've got a couple things that you probably want to add in terms of what you'd be doing to prep.
Yeah, so I think, excuse me, the prep to me is the most important because you're making a huge decision. You're buying a house. A lot of times it's the biggest asset that people own, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. I think the first thing when it comes to the prep phase is understanding yourself. Why are you buying a house?
Yeah.
Is it a lifestyle decision you're making? Is your family growing? Are you downsizing? Is it location? Is it schools? I think you need to understand why is it you want to do this. This is the long-term benefits that come with owning a house and putting that money in a piggy bank versus renting. I think that is the most important piece when it comes to buying a home is why are you doing this? Because if you have a strong why for anything in life, it will happen, and it helps you remind yourself when maybe things get rocky, things get hard, why you're doing this in the first place.
I agree. And usually one of the first bits of advice I give people as they get started is, in today's market in Milwaukee, which is a seller's market, it's competitive, it's hard for buyers, a little bit easier for sellers.
Yep.
If buying a home is not your number one priority, like, it's very hard to be successful because you have to have a lot of conviction that I need to do this, it's in my budget, I know what I'm doing, and I've gotten the education I need to be successful. Like, it's not just like I walk into a couple open houses or a couple weekends, think about it for a couple days, put in the offer. Like, it is fast moving, but we want to make sure you have all the answers to your specific situation before you get rocking and rolling and thinking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, agreed. Because it can be tough. You know, it can be tough buying a home. It's not easy. That's why not everyone does it. So having the why to me is super important. I think then from there, knowing the money side of things is a great start as well too. Because you need to, first off, I would say, understand what is your monthly budget you're willing to spend, having enough savings for a down payment, and having a credit score that's going to allow you to purchase a home. The credit score, I think most lenders want to see above a 700 typically, 650.
I think 720 is where it starts being like they'll call it slam dunk. Like you're going to be in a good spot, getting better rates, terms, and it's not always just like your interest rate, but also the points or the cost you have to pay in closing costs that can get extremely elevated if you have a lower credit score.
Yep. So getting your credit score, making sure that that's 700 or above, or as close to 700 as you can, is probably something that you can start doing today.
Yeah.
We won't dive into ways you can improve your credit score. NerdWallet is a phenomenal resource as far as how to help those kind of things if you're in a situation where you're not at 700. Down payment, something that I think is on everyone's mind. How much money do you need to bring to buy a house, Todd?
This is actually probably the number one thing that I see that people mix up because they're usually getting advice from their parents. And parents naturally are incredibly opposed to a fancy acronym called PMI, Private Mortgage Insurance, which is if you do less than 20% down, there's an insurance policy that your lender will make you get in case you foreclosed or lost the home. And it's like the devil for parents, but it's in a lot of cases it's actually not that large. And so that would be the piece. So what are the options you have for down payments and financing? There are 3.5% FHA loans. That's a government subsidized. It's a way to get a low down payment option, usually better interest rates. There are 3%, 5%, 10%, 20% down and beyond conventional loan products as well. And I think a lot of people come in with this myth that you need to put 20% down. In a lot of cases, it's probably financially smart to try to achieve that. But for some people, saving anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 is like a huge amount of money that could take them 5 to 10 years to save. And in today's market, that could be a runaway train of trying to get to that point of affordability. Sometimes sooner is better than later in that down payment savings process.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think the magic number is 3.5% with an FHA down. And that's the sale price of the house. When we say 3.5%, it's of what the purchase price is. 5% is typically what I hear for conventional mortgages. If you served in the military, you can use a VA, Veterans Administration, thank you, mortgage where you can put 0% down actually. So 3.5% to 5% down is typically the minimum you're looking at. There are going to be some additional closing costs and some money along the way. And so I kind of say if you're looking at putting 5% down, you at least want to have maybe another 3% of the purchase price to use allocated towards closing costs. It might not be that much, it might be more.
Inspections and post-move-in repairs and a little bit of reserve and like make you feel warm and fuzzy when you actually move in.
We shouldn't be draining the bank account. Correct. It shouldn't be you have 10,000 now you have 0 after buying a home, because you're not going to be in a good position to actually be able to live comfortably after you move into that house. And then if we're talking budget per month, the best calculator that I have found is if you just go on Google, there's even an app for it, Zillow Mortgage Calculator. It does a phenomenal job where you can say, here's the purchase price, here is how much I'm putting down, here's what my taxes are, here's what my homeowner's insurance is, and it's gonna put it and say, okay, you're spending total each month $1,500 or $4,000, wherever that number is. They also have a calculator that says, hey, if I make this much money per year, how much should I be spending towards my mortgage? And I think that's the best way to understand how much your costs are all in. And we can help you run these too. I do this for clients all the time. I send you screenshots like, hey, here's probably where this is gonna be each month. But then look at that number, look at how much you're bringing in each month, what other expenses do you have, and does that feel reasonable for you? You know, is that something that you can make happen every month?
Yeah, the number one way to not run your budget is to get introduced to a lender, ask, what's the maximum amount of money that I could possibly take out given my income and my existing monthly debts, and then buy that. You might be able to do that, and that's gonna be comfortable for you depending on your financial situation, but that is not doing enough. I think like running the math and like looking at your why and your budget and everything else, you should be running that principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PMI, and probably like reserves and maintenance formula. Because you know when you own a home, things break.
Yeah,
I mean,
unfortunately
you've probably lived in rentals, and you probably once a month reach out to your landlord and say, "Hey, something broke. Here's my maintenance request." That is now your responsibility.
Okay, good. So we kind of talked about the why, the money at like a very high level sneak peek. Let's talk about now. Okay, you've got you know you need to move. You know you got to move, buy a house. You've got a budget in mind, your credit score's where it needs to be, you've got some savings put aside, you're ready to kind of go, you know, like you're in a good spot where like it's time for me to go start seeing houses and maybe like actually understand more. Before you go and start to even see houses, what should you be doing? Like, should I just kind of be like going on Zillow and saying, oh, I could live over here, I could live over here, I'm open to this location? Like, what's super important, do you think, before you even kind of pull up that Zillow app, would you say?
I would say, I think it's kind of nice to do it in combination with Zillow or searching on Compass or anything else, is starting to write down needs, wants, deal breakers, especially if you're buying with a significant other or somebody else, because you're gonna find naturally right off the bat, you're gonna have some crossed lines, some compromises that need to happen. And that needs, wants, deal breakers is something that evolves throughout the entire shopping, searching process. And that's a big factor of why we like going in those first 1, 2, 3 showings with you, so that we can almost be like your therapist and work through those, like, why is this not a 10 out of 10 home for you? Is there a deal breaker, or is it missing a need? Those are things I think that are good to like start with the end in mind of like, let's define what we want. We've talked about budget. Now what about the actual home that's gonna fit our needs?
I think that's great. And I think like location is very much one of those needs. I think the more that you as a home buyer can understand where you want to be and get alignment with any other people that you're buying that house with, it's going to make your process a lot easier. If you're not saying it's a bad strategy to be open to 4 or 5 different municipalities, but the more that you can kind of define the location, the easier it is for you to really dial into that neighborhood or that area, be very proactive when you see something get listed for sale, to really know that market, you as a home buyer, to like really strike when something comes up that's ready for you. So I think location is super important.
Yeah.
And then also, like you mentioned too, what do you want in the house? And having that in your head is like a bathroom count. How many bathrooms do you have to have? What are those deal breakers? Do you need a yard? Do you need a garage? Do you need a ranch? And knowing what those deal breakers are and what are the things you can kind of flex on a little bit is super critical too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, like for this entire process, it's being comfortable knowing that things change along the road. And probably the biggest mistake I see people make are being way too broad from a location and a criteria, because then you get 100 results sent to you per week and there's no way to filter through that, and everything feels like a missed opportunity emotionally.
Yep.
But there's also like going too narrow that sometimes it's like, hey, we see one home a month come up inside of our search. And again, if it's not your number one priority and you don't jump when that one opportunity per month comes up, you almost have to like relearn the process and go through that education again, because this is a consistency game. Just like going to the gym, you need to start ramping up after this education phase, going into that shopping, searching phase. You kind of need to be out there in the market, in homes every week. And I would say most of our clients probably spend anywhere from 2 to 4 months shopping. And that's consistency at least every week, every other week, going to 1 to 2 homes.
Agreed.
The goal is not to go to, hey, can we get 8 showings this weekend? Because they're all going to blur together. And you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, the ones that are good evaporate, the other ones are garbage. Like you can actually start refining this process to actually save yourself time and get to your result quicker.
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
It's the same reason a lot of people hire personal trainers, and it's the accountability, it's the knowing how to do things, it's to set a goal with you, and which a lot of times for people is when's my lease up? When do I need to be moved for my new school district and everything else? Like we can actually help you get to your goals through a lot of the tools we have on our end in terms of predicting if you're shopping for the next 3 months, how many homes are going to pop up inside of your criteria to give you that certainty. And that's another thing people come to with is it realistic for me to buy a home in the next 2 to 3 months and my close? And most companies can give you a yes, no, based on our research.
It's a muscle. You got to flex it. You got to work it out. And then, okay, so we kind of gone through, I think, the high level picture. You know, this person now, this fake person, they've got their criteria lined up. They've got like an idea of money they want to spend. They know they want to do this. Now what happens? Now what should they be doing?
Yeah, so at this point, you've probably recruited your agent. You've gone through that home buying kickoff. You've gone to a few homes.
So let's back up here a little bit. So I think finding a realtor is probably at this point where you are now. And I think that's probably the next step that you're in. And maybe you've already found a realtor. Maybe you've just been window shopping. I think then finding that realtor that can actually help guide you through the whole process, go on private showing, someone that's in your corner, that knows their neighborhood, knows the market, has done this before, is kind of where you're at that phase. And I think there's different ways that you can find a realtor. If you've been going to open houses and you really click with someone, it's a great way to find one. Word of mouth, asking friends and family members that have bought a house in the last couple of years, hey, who'd you use? Did you like them? Did you have a good experience with them? Google reviews are a great way. Reaching out to Ty and I, obviously, we're realtors. You know, I probably should have said that number one.
And you're trying to find a perfect balance of skill, personality, availability. Like, we're humans too. So we've got our own quirks. You know, we are who we are. You know, I'm a little bit of a data nerd, you know, everything else. So if you want to know down to the exact percentage of, you know, things going on in the market, I might be your guy. But then also like that availability piece, like what's the support structure behind your agent as well in terms of this market moves so quickly, like what are the backup strategies if we're on vacation because we live normal lives just like everyone else does too. So those are important things to ask your agent is like, what's your experience? You get to know them through potentially going on appointments, meeting them at open house, doing that home buying kickoff with them to learn their process, how they help clients get the job done. And then finally, what's your availability look like? Like, just like anyone else, if you met with a CPA, an attorney, you go to the bank, they've got normal business operating hours. You should make sure that that's actually a good match for you too.
Yep, I love it. So you got your realtor, got them locked in. They're your person. You're probably texting them a couple times a week. You're going to see houses. Let's talk about, I guess, then, at what point is a buyer having a conversation with a lender? And what does that look like? Why does someone have a conversation with a lender? What does that whole piece mean? Fill me in there.
I think having a conversation with a lender should happen as soon as possible. usually people start window shopping, then they kind of find their agent, and then their agent may refer them, or they may then go to their bank, local credit union, and then find the lender. And then sometimes I actually kind of wish that it was the opposite, because I think the lenders can have a lot of perspective on helping through that budget conversation before you go down this road of like looking at homes that might not even be within reality. So I would say as soon as possible, because lenders, when they go through their pre-approval process for making sure you qualify with your debt, your income, your credit score, everything we've talked about already, if there's like a bogey in there, if there's a challenge for you to fix, the sooner you have that conversation, if there is some bad news, which most time there's not, you can start working on it, as opposed to going through this process, getting super excited, and all of a sudden you find the one, now you talk to a lender and poof, opportunity gone, because things move so quick. So my opinion, as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And we've got a lot of recommendations for lenders and who to use. And I think you kind of end up having this core team, if you will, where you've got your realtor who's helping you find that house, negotiate with you. They're kind of your advisor, your coach through everything. Then you've got your mortgage lender, who's basically everything money-wise. And those kind of become your two people that you're working with day to day. And when you have that first conversation with a mortgage lender, they're going to ask you a lot of personal questions. They're going to ask you, how much money do you make? What kind of debts do you have? They're going to do a credit pull. They're going to look at your tax returns. They're going to
all these things. It's open kimono.
Yes,
as we used to say.
It really is.
Show me everything, and you need to show that. If you have a lender who's not asking you some like deep and prying questions, which again, these are professionals, like you can share this personal information with you. If you have somebody who's just like very surface level, what's your income? Do you have any debts? Great, here's your number. Be very concerned, because if you get 3 weeks into your under contract phase and they didn't check for all of your potential pitfalls, everything else, you could lose the home at week number 3. And you think you're already movers set, utilities are like about to be turned on, and then home's gone. Like, you need to be vetted yourself to make sure you're ready to go.
Exactly. And after that conversation with the lender, after you supply them everything and anything that they need, which can feel like a lot sometimes, which I think that's the most tedious part of the process, is giving the lender everything that they need. They then give you a mortgage pre-approval letter, and that basically says that you're qualified to purchase a home up to this purchase price. And that's basically super important, because number one, it means that, okay, this is real, you can do this, you can make this happen from just a money perspective, but also for us to submit an offer, we need to include a proof of funds. And that proof of funds could be a bank statement if you're buying in cash, or it could be a mortgage pre-approval letter. And if we can't submit offers until we do that. And that doesn't mean that
you
we
won't
can't
be
go
considered in the slightest without some sort of approval or proof of funds.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean we can't go and see homes. It just means that it's hard for us to really work for you and understand what is your budget and what's real versus not real until you have that conversation.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So at this point, we've talked about needs, wants, deal breakers. You've probably found your agent. They've introduced you or helped you with vetting your potential lender. You got that nice one-page pre-approval letter, proof of funds, golden ticket. At this point, we're like very much searching and shopping. Right? Like, I really hesitate to say that you're shopping until you got a pre-approval letter, but now we've got it. So how about you kick me off on kind of like, what's the typical week in the life of a home buyer?
Yeah, so I would say where this starts when you connect with your realtor, whether you found them at an open house, on the street, word of mouth, you're gonna have a phone call with them. Probably a 30-minute phone call. They're gonna ask you a lot of questions. What are you looking for? Neighborhood, price points. Have you been pre-approved? Are you working with a lender? XYZ. Just to understand your picture, understand what your wants, needs, timelines, budget, all of that good stuff. Then they're gonna lay out for you a plan, more or less.
And they should be the driver of this plan, because we do this all day, every day. If you feel like you're in the driver's seat of the process, you probably need to find someone else.
Yes, I totally agree. And then at that point, you've got a plan laid out for, okay, here is the area that we're looking. They're probably gonna set you up on a search through their local MLS or brokerage. You're gonna start getting notifications for homes that are available in that area. You're probably talking with your realtor back and forth about, what do you think of this home? What do you think about this one? And then it's time to go and see some homes in person with your realtor. Let's talk about that here.
Usually that, like, again, first few, like we mentioned, the intention is to educate you about, a lot of times it's like, what are the systems in the home? We like to call it like the big ticket items. What are like the big needle movers that could be challenges? what is going to be like as we walk through, like in each room, hey, we're in the living room. Is this going to work with your flow? Like what you want your like furniture to look like and layout? Like, are you guys like always cooking? Does operating space matter? Knowing that you can always change little things like appliances and everything else. It's going through and asking questions to like stimulate conversation between, especially if there's, you know, multiple people working on buying this home together. And usually I'd say like we talk a little bit more on the first couple appointments to start like asking the right questions to help define those needs, wants, deal breakers. But as we get into future, you know, showings and tours, the home buyer is going to be the one that's driving a lot of these conversations. And for me specifically, like the end result is you're trying to get compare and contrast. Each home builds like some knowledge and some like education around like what you want. And we like to use a rating out of 10. Like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 means like this is super exciting. This would be one that we'd be willing to write an offer on. We can see ourselves living here. If it's not a 9 out of 10, usually that means there's no further action to take other than what's the missing need? Is there like not enough of the wants? Is there a deal breaker right there that we can keep an eye out for in the future on photography, videography that the listing agents provided to save you time? It's not all about, I like this home, go see it. As the process kind of goes on, you know, showing 5 and beyond, we might be trying to help you eliminate options before we even need to go in person, knowing that there's some things that we just can't see in photos. So there might be a couple duds that we still see showing 5 and beyond. Yeah,
I think you nailed it. Like I think the tours you're going on a tour to see if it's a home for you or not, but I think the first 3 to 4, it's really just going to the gym and working out. It's test driving a car. I get super nervous when I meet a client and they want to write an offer on the first house they've seen, unless they've been like, we've been eyeing this house forever and we walk past it every day. We've been in it.
Window shopping for a year. Like this is our first time. Like we've been waiting and not a lot comes up in this neighborhood. Like we know this is something that we've been looking for. You're like, okay, you've done your homework. Yeah. The way you're speaking to me gives me comfort.
Yes.
Because most people don't come into this process with an entire fleshed out plan.
Right. And so I think it's the first 3 to 4 tours that we go on, it's all for, is this what you're looking for? You know, I'm not expecting you to want to write an offer on these.
The most common thing we get in this phase of like those first 5 showings, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry we wasted your time. I'm like, this is literally my career.
Yes.
Like, my job is to take you through this process, knowing that you should probably not be writing an offer on those first 3 homes.
And I'd rather us go see 5, 10, 15 homes that aren't a good fit for you for us to find that one that is, versus you feel like you're wasting my time and you want to go and just write an offer on the 3rd one because it's easy and convenient when you're not super happy with it. Like that's not, to me, like we're here to help you with this and to go to as many homes or as few as needed so you can find what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I'd like to give this direction when that question comes up, like, oh my gosh, I feel like we're wasting your time. I like to share the averages, and not everybody falls within this, but it's very common to go on about 8 to 12 home tours with an agent, even outside of those initial open houses you may have done, and maybe write 2 to 3 offers in today's competitive buyer's market in the Milwaukee area. And that's like, okay, that's the average. Usually what I find is when you start going to that 15, 20, 30 showings, there may not be as much clear direction. A lot of the time the search or the amount of areas you're looking in is too broad.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to writing an offer, the strength of the offer comes down to really 2 to 3 things. Number 1, how much do you want the house? Number 2, competition. How many other offers are there? And number 3 is how well is the home priced is a good one too. Like, let's just assume the home is priced correctly. But yeah, how much do you want it and what's competition? That's going to dictate really the strength of the offer that we put together. I think the main thing, we're not going to go into the whole offer, all the lines. That would be probably the most boring thing. We went through real estate training, and it's about a 40-hour session we do that goes line by line through the offer. We're not going to put you guys through that. The main thing is you'll have a deep conversation with your agent and realtor about what the offer looks like, what are the options you guys have. I think the most important thing to understand about the offer is it is a legal contract. If it gets accepted, you're entering into a legal contract. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's not something that you can willy-nilly decide, hey, I don't want this anymore, without there being ramifications and repercussions. There's ways that we can get out of an offer for sure if we include contingencies in that offer. I think that's the most important thing, is that it's serious.
And it differs state by state. Like, we'll call it like greater metro area by greater metro area of like how things are interpreted, how things are actually written black and white. So if you're relocating to Wisconsin, Milwaukee from out of state, there is a very high likelihood it's different, even if you've done a purchase yourself in the past. So that'd be like the quick overview there. And you know, one of the things that we want to roll into next is you've written your offer, congrats, you got it accepted.
Woo.
That's perfect. So what is essentially like, I think what we want to say here is probably just the highest level of like, what are the like milestones we kind of meet? And we'll go into the closing process in much further detail because we could probably make a 3-part series on that overall. But these are generally the steps that I see as, I call it like your first 24 hours steps, which includes earnest money, getting your inspection scheduled, getting your financing approval rolling. Then you very quickly roll into your due diligence phase, which includes your contingencies that protect you. We'll go over those at a high level in a second. And then finally, it's like your like final steps to closing, which is really where your lender, and here in the state of Wisconsin, your title company really takes over the keys to the car and gets you to the finish line, because we've already gone through some negotiations and that dialing in phase.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think the first 2 days, there are a ton of moving parts and it feels a little overwhelming. So just be prepared that the first 2 days are when a lot of little things happen. And it doesn't mean it slows down from there, but that's when I think it's the most important to be responsive, a little bit more nimble. There's some more urgent things that need to take place in those first 2 to 5 days, I'd say. But yeah, getting your earnest money paid. A title company will hold that, or it's going to be held in a trust account, so it's not going to the seller and it goes towards your down payment. Scheduling that home inspection. So your home inspection is going to take place. You're going to get a fancy report back. If you have a home inspection contingency, that's typically your time to either negotiate, ask for repairs, ask for credits, have further follow-up done on things that came up from that inspection report. And then if there is any renegotiation that takes place, work through that. Or if the inspection is at a point where you can't reach an agreement with the seller, use that contingency to walk away and get your earnest money back.
Yep. And then really where the hands off there. So like you said, you got those first couple days, inspection happens, negotiations take place, we move forward. You then roll into, essentially at this point, we're at like, let's call it day 10 to 15. Appraisal has probably happened at this point, which is where the lender is trying to verify that the offer you made in the home is actually a good investment, making sure that there's other homes similar that have sold at similar price points as well. Appraisal comes back again, hopefully no further negotiation. We get that, we got the green light, we're good to go. Time to pass the keys over to the lender. What's like these final couple steps that the lender and the title company are going to do to get you to the finish line? Yeah,
so from a lender's perspective at this point, if we have the go-ahead on the appraisal, you're now really finalizing your mortgage. And this is kind of when your lender becomes someone, you've probably been talking to your lender quite a bit at this point, but your realtor is still there, but you're not having as many conversations with them at this point because it's really now on you and the lender to kind of finalize that mortgage. Basically, that mortgage that you applied for, it goes through an underwriting process, which means that there's a whole team going through your finances and this loan with a fine-tooth comb. There may be some additional documents that they need from you to verify some information. They're going to make sure that you're still employed. They may do a final credit check as well. The most important
piece. You didn't
piece,
take out $1,000 a month car payment or something like that?
Yeah, the most important piece is once you have an accepted offer, finances stay status quo. Don't be moving a bunch of money around, number one, but don't be applying for a new credit card, any new lines of credit, any new mortgages.
Don't finance a new fancy couch. No lines of credit, no credit pulls, soft or hard, no new credit pulls.
If you're planning on having a job change, talk to your lender before you do that too, because that could be something actually I had to postpone one of my closings because I was changing to a different company, and it was in a different industry, and so they had to make sure, like, hey, we can either close this week or you need to wait another 45 days, and so we adjusted accordingly. So make sure that your lender's in the loop with what's going on with anything going in and out of your bank account, more or less, and where that's coming from. And then, mortgage gets approved.
Yeah, so loan commitment comes in, you've cleared inspection, appraisal, financing, then the really fun part, title, they're coming in, they're doing some research to make sure, essentially when the home closes and it becomes yours, it's free and clear of any sort of other liens, encumbrances, other than your own mortgage, of course, which most people do use a mortgage to buy their home. There's that kind of back and forth. What's your cash to close? What's the amount of money that you essentially need to bring to the closing table to get the keys? Closing set, you sign a nice little stack of paperwork, which fortunately over the last couple of years has gotten smaller and smaller. And that gets us to the finish line. You get your key, you're off to the races. And a lot of people ask this, it's like, so after I send the paperwork, like, is it mine? Like, most of the time, yes, unless the seller needed some post-closing occupancy, but it's like, yeah, here's your key. You can literally go over. That's your house.
Yep.
You can take it, drive it off the lot.
Yeah. Woo. And at that point, you probably already transferred utilities over into your name, organized trash, Spectrum, getting Wi-Fi going. But yeah, you leave the closing, and I think closing I wish was maybe a bit more eventful. It's about 45 minutes to an hour, just depending. You're signing maybe 17 different documents. Most of them with your mortgage if you have a mortgage. Some with the city, some with title. But yeah, you walk out of there with a set of keys and a new home.
And off to the races.
Yeah.
And I mean, essentially from there, we could talk about, what comes next. You're now a, new happy homeowner, time to get moving in there. What happens next? I would think my last little tip or piece of advice is how much should I be saving to maintain this home into the future? I think a good baseline rule of thumb is save 1% of your home's value per year. So if you own a $400,000 home, you should probably be saving about $4,000 a year. Break that into monthly contributions to a savings account, because things will happen. It doesn't happen every month, but a few times a year you're gonna have things that pop up that you're gonna want to have on hand to fix when things get a little bit messy. And at some point in the future, probably in the next 15 to 20 years, no matter what, you're probably gonna be replacing a roof. So start saving for those big expenses today, not going into the future.
Yeah.
But I mean, with that,
what else?
You probably know enough to be dangerous. Don't go try to do this alone, because we do this all day, every day. We see the ups, the downs. This is, I would say, if you're crossing your fingers hoping that it's going to be smooth and completely free of challenges and hurdles, I'll tell you, you're about 99% of the time going to be wrong. That's one of the things that we do is we're professional problem solvers, and we can help get you through this process in the most streamlined way possible. So that's our main role overall. But with that, thanks for joining us today on our How to Buy a Home episode. Hopefully you found a lot of value. Follow us. We should be coming out with more content on these deep dives into specific steps within the different buying, selling, and investing processes. With that, we'll catch you next week on the Milwaukee Real Estate Market Update.
Bye, guys.